Welcome back to the Great Futures Forge. I am your host, Amir Washington, and we are here live from Boys and Girls Club of Newark once again. And this is a milestone episode for us. This is episode number 10 of the Great Futures Forge. And we have another alumni spotlight, Mr.
Daquan Foster. Happy to be here. How you doing?
So Daquan, you have a rich past in history with Boys and Girls Club of Newark. Tell me about how you became a club member.
Yeah, so I became a club member at about 6 years old. My mom was sort of like looking for programs for me to sort of get into. She wanted me to like socially interact with other kids more just outside of a school setting. And we had tried different things, but there was something special about Boys and Girls Club that just stuck. Like I just remember like the first day walking into the building, and then I remember my mom coming to pick me up later that day, and I was like, I don't want to go home. I want to stay here. And then, that was almost 20 plus years ago, and I've been hooked ever since.
So what was it about Boys and Girls Club that had you hooked? Like what was it? Was it the people? Was it the place? Was it the activities? The other kids? Like what made you just fall in love with that place?
I think it's a mixture of everything you just mentioned, right? I think that the staff were just so very committed to making sure we had a lot of like fun, and they allowed us to be like very expressive. Like I feel like as members in the building, we had a lot of choice in what we wanted to do, and I felt like we had a say. And I think that's really important for young people to just, exercise that right. And, as a kid, like your life is very dictated. Like you go to school, you do this, you do what your parents say at home. But this very much felt like it was a place that, while obviously it was run by adults, it felt like it had a lot of kid influence. And the place was just fun. Like, it had the traditional things of what a school setting would have, but it just felt a lot more personable. It didn't feel so like structured and rigid. It just felt like the building came alive, whether it was like the artwork that kids had made or like the photos of kids on the walls and everything. So that played a role in it. And then, I went there with a lot of my friends from school, so it allowed me to deepen a lot of those relationships that sort of already existed. So I think it was, like I said, it's a combination of all the things that you mentioned in terms of what made it so unique.
So for you, what was the hardest part of that transition, being a part of a club, not having been a part of Boys and Girls Club, and then becoming a Boys and Girls Club member?
I think the hardest part was sort of finding my tribe among other members. It's funny, right? When I look back, and I think about this a lot, when I think about my club experience, the years that always like sort of like stick out to me are really those like preteen and adolescent years, because I think that that's really when you're going through the changes of finding out who you are and what you really like and what your interests really are. I think the most difficult part was really just like, as you're interacting with other kids, you're sort of like, oh, like, do you actually like want to be my friend? Do you like me? Or are we friends like by situation of circumstance? And it goes back to what I said before about spending time with folks and really deepening those relationships, because you go through like experiences at a Boys and Girls Club. I mean, and I know we'll get into like our history as well, but the building
maybe not. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know if I want to talk about you that much.
The building used to stay open until 9 p.m. And at one point, you're arguably, I was spending more time with the staff there and the kids there than I was in my own family. So it very much was just very difficult, sort of coming into that and like growing into being this person that functions as a part of this family.
Yeah.
But once it clicked, and well, you've been stuck with me ever since. So
the tragic story of my life. No, but I want to go back to kind of when you first became a club member. Yeah. How old were you?
I was 6.
6 years old. Yeah. So when you were 6 years old, you walked into the club and you fell in love with this place. Who were the staff people that made that experience?
Yeah. So at that time, at the Broadway unit, that was at that time we had 3 Boys and Girls Club units in the city of Newark when I was attending as a member. Fred Ross was somebody that like, it was very like, it felt very Father Knows Best kind of. He was cool. And he still is, right? He's still the guy, man. Like he just knew how to like talk to kids and parents. He had a really unique way, and he made every parent feel like their kid was going to be okay. And he was stern but fun. He would get up and like dance with us and everything, like, play sports with us. Like he was very involved. Leslie Brown was there at the time as well. Have the absolute utmost love and respect for her. She ran a tight ship, but she was very, very nurturing and very, kind, and just made sure that we were engaged and involved in all the things that we needed to be involved in. So those two folks come to mind immediately when I think about the first interactions with staff members that I had as a kid that really stuck out to me.
So tell me, because we just did a video for our gala not so long ago, and you were featured in it and a part of it. You've been a part of a lot of what we've done over the years as a club member, and now as an adult being a staff member before. What was challenging for you being a kid from Newark, but being a little bit different than, say, what people might think of, or what some of the typical kids are like in the community where you were from?
Yeah, I mean, so I think I'm really into film and television, and I like to read a lot of books, and I like comics, and I like sports, like most kids my age did.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was that added level of like liking to read fiction and really like falling in love with things like Star Wars and everything, because the prequel trilogy was really popular at the time that I was growing up. So it goes back to what I said before about it being difficult to sort of find that tribe, because when you have these very eclectic interests, kids aren't exactly the nicest folks in the world. Like they, if it's something different than what they've been introduced to or what is, portrayed to them as popular, if it's, viewed as different based on like stereotypes of like, oh, only, people of this gender like that, or people of this race like that, often they will go on the offense, and it makes you question your sense of self. And it's difficult to sort of like, understand who you are. And you're like, I think I like this thing, but is it wrong to like this thing? And, why is it wrong? And I think the one thing that the club did a very great job of, and still to this day, and has done throughout its inception, is just making young folks feel like they have a voice and that they belong and that they matter, and that, you can come as you are and we will accept you and love you and embrace you and nurture you and help you grow, and make you a very productive member of society.
Yeah. So what would you say the feeling was that you had when you were accepted? Obviously, right, the staff are there. Part of it is their job, but I think you talked about Fred Ross, and he was around when I was a teenager, especially. I remember meeting him. I was maybe a little older, maybe 13 or 14 years old. But he was a great guy. He was a very nice guy. His son worked at the club, and so. And I remember becoming the program director after he departed, and Ms. Brown was still there. But what was it like finding your tribe and finding other like-minded individuals who were in your city and town that you could congregate with after school? Like, what did that do for you?
It felt like a meeting of like the super friends. Like, I think that's the best way to describe it. It very much felt like, and I'll use the Super Friends Justice League sort of as like an analogy of like, you have all of these heroes, these people who are living their own lives. But when we come together and we're a team, we're kind of unstoppable. And I mean, it felt like the most fun I've ever had in my life. Like, as I look in the grand scheme of my life in the very short 30 years that it's been, those are some of the best times that I think about. Because like I said, you spend more time with them than you do with other classmates at school and with your family. And, you watch them like have crushes, and you watch them literally just discover their talents and grow. And I mean, it is so like heartwarming, right? Like even now I'm kind of getting a little emotional, because I'm like, these people till this day are some of my best friends. I talk to them every day. I play video games with them still. Like I didn't know then that I was forming these lifelong bonds, and it's provided me, I think, with a sense of like confidence and security to move through just life, knowing that like, I'm not so different. I'm unique, but I'm not, so isolated or foreign in that way, in the interest that I have, or, the way that I like to spend my time, or the things that I like to do. I very much just felt like, I think everybody wants to belong, and I felt that having that sense of belonging just completely changed me for the better, boosted my confidence. And it also just made me a lot more like empathetic to other people. And it made me want to make other people feel as welcomed as I did.
And so the Danger Kids were born.
So, see, you're skipping ahead in all of this.
I think that's
a good segue.
I think when you talk about that tribe and that superhero friends, one of the things that Quan was doing when I met him in the early part of 2006 was he would sit in the corner, kind of by himself a lot of the times, and he would write this story, and it was called Danger Kids, and each of his friends were superheroes in the story. And I, like Daquan, lost my father when I was a very young kid, and I think his story is a little bit different. So I want to start there, and then we can talk more about that. Kind of what was it like not having your father involved in your life, and did that contribute some ways in your lack of confidence and your anxiety about who you were and how you showed up in the world?
Absolutely. I mean, I think traditionally, there's a saying that like boys need their fathers. And I, sort of had that in my family. Like, my grandfather, my great uncle who was like since departed, my great uncle who actually like passed away when I was very young, about like 10 years old. He was definitely like a very prominent, like father-esque figure. Like that was the guy that taught me like, oh, this is how you wear a suit, and this is how you dress like properly. And this is how you act as a gentleman and everything like that. And going back to what I mentioned before, specifically about the time periods at the club that I remember the most, about being like 11, 12 years old and everything, with him passing away at 10, and you enter in that sort of like pre-adolescent, adolescent phase when you're really starting to become who you're going to be, or the foundations of that are starting to be built. There was a sense of like loss, I like, not only just in terms of grief, but in terms of like almost wandering, and it made me feel like I didn't really fully know who I was. And, I was scared, and I didn't know if I was going to be a, lack of better words, a good grown up, right? Like, like how does a man show up? And this was something that I was finding myself questioning very deeply, because, and my grandfather had like at this point moved back down to Virginia. So the two men who I had as these role models my entire life were now suddenly gone. And I felt very lost and afraid and alone, to be completely honest.
So, who was the first person that became that father figure for you at the Boys and Girls Club?
So the very, very, very first person that I remember that took on that role was probably Mike Sancho. I remember some of the kids weren't being too nice to me, and I was like off in the corner writing Danger Kids, as you mentioned before. And he came into the club and he saw me like sitting off on my own. He took an interest in what I was doing, and he just, he saw that I was like kind of visibly upset, because if I remember it correctly, I think the other kids were making fun of me because I was like one of the first kids to wear the uniform, because I think the uniform policy was starting to go into effect at the school that I was at. And my mother, the loving, doting woman that she is,
oh, Alice Foster.
If you know her, to know her is to love her. But she was always ahead of the curve. Like she was very stern and always made sure I had all the resources necessary needed to succeed. I tell people all the time, I think I could have been anything in the world that I wanted, and my mom would have done everything in her power to make sure I had that availability to do so. So when I'm sitting in the Boys and Girls Club, and this grown man just comes in, and he just starts like talking to me honestly. He starts to take an interest in like what I like and everything, and we just sort of like form this kinship. And he also has a son, Giovanni, who is very close in age to me. So he started bringing him to the Boys and Girls Club a little bit more. And, Gio and I think just from day one, we were like locked in, and I haven't been able to get rid of him since. But
don't let him, I won't let him talk bad about you, Gio. You're a great guy.
I'll see you at Epcot, Gio. But, he very much took me in and treated me, and has consistently treated me as family. He's one of the three people that I call whenever I have a major life decision to make, whether that's like relationship advice, career advice, finance advice, just to like talk about like sports, just to have somebody there, it's truly like a blessing. Like I really don't want to underplay it, and I'm also not trying to like get super emotional about it, because it means so much to me.
I've been working on this for 20 years now.
But that was like the first person. I mean, like, he's just been there through thick and thin, like, and I've there've been like really tough moments of inflection in my life where I felt like he consistently stepped up to the plate. He calls me honorable son number 2.
Yeah.
He's like, the only thing that's different, and now I'm a grown up, but at the time he was like, I just can't claim him on my taxes.
So I had a thought in thinking about comic books, and you mentioned the other guy. And I guess we could call ourselves the living tribunal now.
You are.
We won't make ourselves God. But who's the other gentleman? Because I think that was probably the second person prior to you meeting me that has had a significant impact on your life. And you say, before major life decisions, you call them as well. Who's that? Talk about him a little bit.
So that is Felix Rouse, who you know very well.
Yep.
Inevitable guest on the pod at some point if you ever get a hold of
we
him.
can get him up here again. Should be here May 1st, but that's another conversation.
I hope you watch this video and now you feel the pressure. No,
it might not be out by then, but
I hope you see this video in hindsight and you feel the pressure retroactively. No, but so he, like us, had grown up in the city of Newark, and he had gone to the Boys and Girls Club as a child, went through the entire program, graduated from high school, went off to college, came back, was unit director during your time at the building. You grew up, left, you went off to college. He goes off to get his master's, works at Johnson & Johnson for a bit, and then comes back as the CEO right around this time period of me being about 10 years old. And, Ms. Banks, former guest of the pod, had sort of spoken to him and said, hey, I think that there's this kid at the club that could really benefit from getting to know you. And at this time, I don't know that him and Mr. Sancho worked together, right? But, obviously there have been discussions, and, he sort of, I remember he had a conversation with my mom, and we went out and we went to one of his favorite breakfast spots, IHOP.
Oh yeah,
that's his thing, man.
That brings up a memory, but I won't get into that right now.
But we went to IHOP and we just clicked, and I mean, I am forever grateful to him because when I think about the type of professional I always wanted to be, it was him. This was a guy who was a little bit on the younger side, because at that point, most of the folks that I had met that were like very professional were like teachers, and you don't really have like an age scope of teachers, but specifically like, seeing a black man from the city who had gone on to not only get a bachelor's degree, but a master's degree, and, could have just been working in corporate America, making a lot of money, decide to come back and serve his community in the way that he did, but take that additional step and doing one of the greatest things that I think we can do as humans, which is to mentor our younger people. For him to take an interest in me till this day, I'm kind of just like, are you sure? Are you sure there wasn't an extra like pay incentive? Like, was it just like, and I know that it wasn't.
Could you imagine that though?
You'd all be well off. Much more well off.
We probably should have been paid more to deal with you for the last 20 years. But that's a different conversation for another day.
But no, like I said, he's one of those guys that I like call, like he very much taught me how to look at my life in like 5-year cycles. Mm-hmm. He pretty much taught me how to really navigate throughout career and business. And I think the thing that was always cool about him was that he was the CEO of the organization, but he would take time to have like team town halls. Like he would take time out of his schedule and set aside one day a month minimum to come and just talk to us about whatever we wanted to talk about. And he would participate in all the volunteer events we did. Any like team time we had at the club, whenever we were playing basketball in the gym and he blew his knee out.
I actually was telling that story today. So we were having the alumni game on May 10th this year, and I'm gonna play, and everybody's like, because I'm an older guy. When I found out you
were gonna play, I thought about this story.
So I was like, remember when Ralph blew his knee out? Because we have retractable rims, so they can come down to 8 feet. And so, we're older guys and we're playing with the young guys. We're running up and down. And, he was an athlete. He played college football at UPenn. And, he could play basketball too. He was a coach. And, he decided to try to go up, too much energy. And, you heard him across the entire gym. And so now I'm having that. But I'm going to take it very
because you're not going to go in here and try to be like LeBron or Kobe or Michael Jordan.
Absolutely not. But I want to ask a question, because one of the things that we talk about a lot here, as a Boys and Girls Club organization, it's programs and program design and the things we do and how we approach to work with kids. But one of the things I always know, and I know it inherently because I've been a club member, because I've been a staff person, and but I want your answer because I want you to make the decision in your own mind based on your experience. When you think back to the club experience, do you remember the programs as the club, or do you remember the people?
I think we've had this conversation, you and I, at different points, and it's definitely the people, man. Because, and it's the same way, I think it's applicable to school as well, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you don't always remember the lessons, and like, I remember the programs, like, obviously the most prominent one probably being our, like, Keystone program, and that's just because we traveled a lot and we met other Keystone clubs, but that still involves people. I think that, without a doubt, it's the people that make the experience. It's the way that people showed up, specifically, like, the way the staff showed up, the the way you showed up, and I know we'll get into that in a little bit, but like the way that you guys were there for us every day, and you put on a great face. And now being an adult and having a job, I'm like, you had to deal with all of us.
I just want to let you know, it was just a job for me. I never liked you.
Never, exactly.
But here's one of the things I want to ask too, though, because I think it's important when we think about that response. And right, and I always tell people, I say, and I tell the staff team a lot, really it's about creating experiences for kids, in my opinion. But what would you say your life? What do you think you would be doing differently, or how you would be living differently, or how you would have turned out if you were not a club member?
I think I would have been successful in the sense that I think I would have had a job, and I think I would have been making money, but I don't know if I would have necessarily felt fulfilled. I think the thing that the club really helped me do was discover the strongest parts of my personality and learn how to utilize them in every aspect of my life, like not just like career, but in terms of like friends, and giving me that confidence to feel empowered to do things that I might have otherwise never thought to do, and just very much understanding that a lot of my life and the things that I wanted and my destiny was very much in my control. Like life, it taught me that like not to let life happen to me.
So if you had to tell a young person, and who was struggling with a challenge, or just their vision of themselves, or what they thought life was supposed to be or was going to turn out to be, and they're 10, 11, or 12 years old, and they're unsure about themselves, what would you tell them, now that you're 30 plus years old, you're a professional, you're working, you've lived a similar kind of experience to someone who was kind of wrestling with their identity? What would you tell them about the future, and what they should be thinking about, and what to look for?
It's okay to be scared. Fear is a natural thing. Like everybody that you've ever known and everyone that you ever will know will feel fear. But what's not okay is to be hindered by that fear. It is okay to dream. It is okay to believe in something larger. It shouldn't be, do not let others dim your own light, but also believe in yourself, because the best bet that you can make in life is to bet on yourself. Because worst case scenario, something didn't work out, but you learned a lesson. And best case scenario, you're wildly successful beyond any like comprehensible dreams that you ever had.
If there's one moment that stuck out in your head where you knew that the Boys and Girls Club was everything you needed, when did that happen? Was that when you were younger? Was it when you were older? Was it after the fact? When did that happen?
I think you know what story I'm going to tell right now.
I don't know. Let's see.
Well, as I tell it, you're there, so
Okay.
you know it. It was an evening when we were doing we had a program at the time called the Verizon Mentoring Program, where staff members from the Verizon phone company, now phone and internet, would come and mentor us, and they would teach us how to conduct professional interviews and write resumes. And I had always been told for a large portion of my life that I was a very articulate young man. And so we had gone around doing mock interviews that evening, like in a circle, and this Verizon staff would give us feedback as well as like the other members. So I remember I went and I did the mock interview, and I did the things that, they had coached us on, and I did very well. And they really didn't have much feedback for me except to keep up the good work. And that was like just setting off an alarm. Obviously, hindsight can completely understand it a little bit more now. A lot of the other members were a little like upset about it, because they had felt at that time that Daquan gets everything, or Daquan gets to do everything. And I just remember feeling like, I can't win from losing. If I do what I believe is right, I'm going to be like chastised for it. And if I do what I believe is wrong, I'm going to be chastised for it. And I remember getting like really emotional that night. I think I cried that night, actually. And I remember you and Mr. Sancho were there, and both of you defended me. And I remember the people that came to comfort me were my two really good friends, Kareem and Giovanni. And they've, stood by my side throughout all of it. But, I specifically remember you saying, we don't pick, like, yes, we like Daquan, like we like all of you guys. But the reason that, we are quick to offer opportunities to Daquan is because he shows up. Like, he'll take the trash out in the teen center. He's doing all the programs that sometimes, because at that time, some of the kids just wanted to come there and they only wanted to play like basketball. And I get it. But, we had all these different programs, and I was doing every single one of them. You were like, that's why we pick him. We pick him because we've set, these guidelines for you guys. We don't force you to do anything, but it's very much like if I see this kid putting in this much hard work, then I'm going to reward this kid in that way. And it made me feel this great sense of just integrity in my work, and it made me take pride in the things that I was doing. And I just felt like from that night onward, I was like, I'm gonna just do me.
That was a transition, because I remember one of the first moments me spending a lot of time at Daquan, and we had the Torch Club going.
I
And
know what he's gonna say.
there was this girl, very nice young lady, and she was a part of the Torch Club too. And we had a plan. We were going to do a fundraiser. We were going to the store to pick up the stuff. And wasn't Kareem the guy?
No. It was
Kareem?
somebody else.
Somebody else. But anyway,
yeah.
So he liked this girl, and as they say in modern times, he shot his shot, and the shot was blocked by her. And then there was this other young gentleman that she took an interest in. And, we weren't encouraging relationships or anything, but the client was so upset about it. I looked at, what did you learn from that experience?
I think the thing that I learned the most from that experience is to not change yourself, right? Because when I think back on that experience, and like both of these people in this story are doing great, and I actually like saw one of them recently. What I learned from that experience was that just be yourself, because I felt like a lot of the guys that I had grown up with were very much just emulating what they were seeing on TV and in movies and everything like that, and just not always being true to themselves. Because like all of us were a little nerdy. Like all of us played Xbox together in that building. Like they try to be like cool in front of the girls, be like, "Hey Daquan, did you see that new Halo trailer, bro?" Like, and I'm like, "Nah, don't do that now, bro. Nah, like say it in front of them when they're here." I think that and I would come to appreciate this more as I would eventually go to high school, and years later people would like told me this. They were like, the thing that I've always appreciated about you was that you were just unapologetically yourself. You like lived your life out loud, and you didn't care who felt a kind of way about that. And people were like, I was envious of that, or I wish that I could have done that, or I understand that and appreciate that more now. And I just remember the advice that you gave me, that you were like, look, you're gonna grow up, and people are gonna want to be your friend, and women are gonna want to talk to you a lot more just because of who you are. So just be yourself. You might not see it now, but you'll see it one day.
Why is it so hard for kids to be themselves?
Because I think that, it's weird, right? I think that what's often shown off as cool isn't just average, right? Like and everyone's unique, but like I think that kids sort of struggle because they want to feel accepted and they want to feel like loved and included. But I feel like if no one does what you did, which is just tell someone like, hey, you're cool as you are, and they don't exist in these environments and ecosystems that reward them for just doing, and not so much rewards, but like embraces and encourages them for being themselves, then, they sort of like try to turn to something that is widely loved and widely accepted and widely praised. And at that point, some kids are just sort of like fit in the mold. Some kids aren't about that lifestyle. You know what I mean? Like some kids are a little bit more quiet, a little bit more reserved, a little bit more like, just play in the background. And that's okay. Like not everybody needs to be like, loud and brash and in your face. Some kids can be reserved. Some kids like I think the beautiful thing about the Boys and Girls Club is that it provided a place where a kid could have a plethora of different personalities and still be treated as like equal, still be treated as fair, and still be given the same opportunities as every other kid.
So I have a question, and it's an old question, but I'd like to ask you the question now with the expectation that you shall know the answer.
Oh Lord.
And what is Captain America's real name?
Okay. His name is Steve Rogers. And for the folks listening, I'm going to just give you context on that, because that is probably like the most quintessential question of our mentor-mentee relationship. I'm very big into Marvel and DC comics, Image, Dark Horse, all everything above. And I remember sort of like flaunting my knowledge to Mr. Washington. And I just remember he was sitting at the computer in the middle of the game room in the Boys and Girls Club. And I was like, I know more about Marvel than you. And he goes, oh, do you now? And I was like, yeah, I'm an expert. And so he goes, what's Captain America's name? And I knew it subconsciously, but I couldn't get the total recall. And I remember he's just like, I got you. And he just pulled it up. He goes, it's Steve Rogers. And, pulled up his whole like biography and everything. And that singular moment, would be one of those very like foundationally life-changing moments, because what would happen from there was not only would I make my mom go and buy me the Marvel and DC Comics encyclopedia, and like I would study it as if it were religious text, but it made me fall in love with like storytelling more. And I was like, I didn't even know you could like look up fictional characters on the internet and learn their biography. That's probably like the best worst thing that you could have done for me, because I still do stuff like that till this day. Like I started reading Wikipedia for fun. Like, like when you would get free time in school and everything, and I'm like, all right, time to go to marvel.com.
I created a monster because I knows everything about. I remember when we went to see, was it Infinity War? Maybe the one before that, which I'm forgetting the trailing name. You were like telling the movie, and he's like, did you see it? And he's like, no, I didn't see it, but I was like, I just feel like it was Endgame. It was everything leading up to Endgame. Right? Like, yeah. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. I don't want to watch this movie with you anymore, because like when you get older, and a lot of people know, like people that were avid readers and read a lot when they were young, work and life gets in the way. But I want to ask you a question about the experiences that Boys and Girls Club gave you, because you had a lot of dreams still. You've been able to meet a lot of people, interview a lot of people. And I'm guessing that this is probably the one that you might say, but what is the singular most favorite experience of meeting a celebrity that you had?
It's a toss-up.
It's a toss-up. I know. The first one starts with a G, starts with an L. It's a part of that Star Wars.
Yeah. But the other one is also a George.
Okay.
And I think you know the other George.
George who?
The 43rd president of the United States.
Right. I'm sorry.
So I think those two. Okay, so for context, we were participating in a fundraising initiative through Malaria No More, and it was Boys and Girls Clubs across the country, but it started here in Newark, and we were raising a lot of funds to help children in sub-Saharan Africa, and it was through just the like altruistic humanitarianism of Ray Chambers,
right.
That I learned what it meant to be a citizen of the world. Like, interacting with him, someone else I consider a mentor, taught me what it meant to take pride in the city of Newark and be proud of where you were from, but also to expand your horizons and understand that, it's important to have service to community, but it's important to try to leave the world a little bit better than you found it. And so through all the fundraising we had done, we were invited to the White House, and I was invited to speak at the White House Summit on Malaria. And there's that photo that exists with former First Lady Laura Bush's hands on my shoulders, right there next to her husband. And they were so kind to us. And we got to, see the White House, and a kid from Newark, New Jersey.
There's some other people in that picture too.
Yeah, no. Okay. So there was the former president, God bless her soul, of Boys and Girls Clubs of America, Roxanne Spillett, and just other kids that I had grown up with, Ibn Towns and Jasmine Tyson and Asa and Nicole Rivera.
And Dachelle Martinez.
Dachelle Martinez did not go with us to DC.
What picture was that she was using? Are you sure? Are you sure? But no, Dachelle Martinez, I brought that up probably because I am trying to see where you are in life and what you're doing, and we've been talking about you. But anyway, so you met the president of the United States, George W. Bush, the president who dodged 2 shoes in Iraq. Great. That was a great moment in American history as far as I'm concerned. But the other George, GL.
Yeah, GL, George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars. So, through a bunch of partnerships that the Boys and Girls Club had with Lucasfilm, they were like, at this time, Mr. Rouse had left to go work in Boys and Girls Clubs of America, and they were like, "Hey, you guys have a kid that likes Star Wars?" He goes, "Do I?"
Understatement of the century.
And I remember I was actually up at summer camp, Frost Valley YMCA, which we also had a partnership with. We send a lot of our members there during the summer as well. My mom came and picked me up, and I thought like something was wrong. I thought I was in trouble, and then we're going to the airport, so I'm thinking we're going to visit family down south, like something's happened. And I'm like, at this point, I think I'm turning 16, actually. I'm 15, turning 16 within the couple days time since. So I'm really afraid, but I know how to read a boarding pass and everything. I'm like, Orlando. So we get on this plane and we land in Orlando in like the dead of night in like August of 2010. and we get picked up from the airport. This is like the most like Entourage kind of like Jason Bourne-esque scariest thing in the world. I'm like, where are we going? And we get to this hotel in downtown Orlando, right across from the Orlando Convention Center. And I see this huge banner hanging off the Orlando Convention Center, and it says Star Wars Celebration 5, and it has the dates in August. And I'm like, what's going on here, right? And so we go into this hotel room, and there's just a ton of Star Wars merch. Like, I still have it all like packed away in my basement, but like I mean, like, it's like that scene, like, in the movie Richie Rich, where they have the McDonald's in the house and everything. Like, it literally felt like that. Like, I felt like Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone 2, man. Like, seriously, like, just being in the hotel and all of this merch. And then, I find out we're going to this convention, and I'm like, all right, cool, no problem. So we go to this convention and everything, and I see all of these people, and like, it is the culmination of everything that you all had taught me at that point, to just be yourself and to love the things you love. But now I'm meeting people who don't even speak the English language, who love Star Wars, who dress up, and it made me feel like not only were there people in my home that, love the things that I love, but there are people all over the world that like adore this franchise and other franchises as well. Because I was talking to people about comics and everything, and also that was the first time I would go to Walt Disney World, and I am sorry, Gio, because that would be the start of it. But it changed my life, and getting to meet George was incredible. Most down to earth guy you'll ever meet, and it's just like, dude, you created one of the biggest franchises of all time. He goes, yeah. Met Dave Filoni too, who's currently like one of the chief creatives at Lucasfilm, and just all the folks that I've met from that team. They were really passionate about what they do, but they were also really so kind to my mother and I, and made sure we had the best experience in the world. And if any of you ever see this, I cannot thank you enough till this day, because you changed a young kid's life for the better. And every career decision I made from that point was like, foundationally founded there. That's when I was like, whatever I do, I want to do something that entertains people, whether that's sports or whatever, or movies or television, for the rest of my life. This is where I belong.
So you entertaining people for the rest of your life. There was this thing called Danger Kids that we worked on together that was originally yours. And that was how part of, how Daquan and I built the relationship was, the not having a dad. And I took, a lot of sympathy to that experience. My dad passed away, unfortunately, when I was 2.5 years old. And I was like, the worst thing a kid can do is live without a dad. I didn't know he had Sancho and Rouse, and he sold my mentors.
Stole?
Yeah. Tried to rob them from me for a moment. But no, I met Mike, and he was my tennis coach, and then Rouse, as I call him, was my unit director as a teenager, and they were very instrumental in my life as well. But we connected on comic books first, and you were writing this thing, and we wrote it together. What is it about the creative experience that you were afforded to, and the access to certain kinds of people like George Lucas, like that experience, that made you pursue that work? And today you're working with the
New Jersey Devils as their manager of corporate partnership activations. Great team. Also one of the Boys and Girls Club partners, like you mentioned. Shout out to the Devils Youth Foundation and all the incredible work that they do for the Boys and Girls Club. I guess what it was about that was that you just meet people that are passionate about the work that they do. I think traditionally, when you're a kid and you think about work, you think about very like blue collar jobs, which are absolutely phenomenal, but you never sit to think that, people that go to the movies for entertainment, there are people that make these. There are people whose entire lives are these. Or when you go to a sports game, you have a really great experience. You're watching stuff on the Jumbotron and everything, or you're, getting hot dogs and shirts and everything thrown at you, and you're having time to do that. You're like, oh man, there are people whose job it is to make sure I have the best experience in the world. And coming from a community where, a lot of kids don't have a lot of money and don't have a lot of access to those things, I'm so grateful that I was afforded that. And outside of, being passionate about telling those stories, going back to what I said before about one of the greatest things that we can do as humans, one of the things I've also dedicated my life to doing is like passing that on and opening the door for other people to enter that world and have those experiences. And a lot of the places I've worked, I've been in charge of hiring interns and mentoring younger staff, or I've been a manager, because I think that it's so important to impart wisdom, because that's a legacy. That, to me, that's what a real legacy is, because you can achieve any and everything in the world, but what's left behind is how you'll be remembered.
So I want to ask you this question before we move to what we like to call our fun section, where we go through some questions about you. And part of why I haven't asked you a lot of questions about me is because, really this is about you and your experience, and we really want to share the stories of the people who've been impacted, who continue to work in our communities, our partners, our kids, and really talk about your experiences. So you've had some very interesting work experiences in your time since becoming an adult and graduating college and getting your master's degree and everything. And you've worked with, some of the world's most famous people on a number of projects. And I know you haven't been with the Devils very long, and they're homegrown, and so I won't put them in the circle. But of the jobs you had prior to the New Jersey Devils, what was your favorite experience, and what did you get the most from that really impacted you personally?
All right. Everybody who's watching this is because I'm probably going to post this on LinkedIn. I am sorry in advance if it's not the answer you want. Ironically, it's two jobs technically, but it's when I worked here and when I worked at Frost Valley, specifically because I was working with young people, and I think that while I've enjoyed the jobs that I've had working with some world-renowned authors and getting to talk to filmmakers and writers and directors and some of the most creative people to ever walk the planet, there was something so innocently pure about just being able to like wake up one day and say, hey, we're all going to be pirates today. And kids just like going along with it and believing in it. Because I think that, at the core of it all, without a bunch of like flashy tools or technology or a lot of money being spent, going back to what we said before, that's the thing they're going to remember for the rest of their life, man. Like that's where it is. It's the people, right? And I've had that full circle sort of moment, which I'm pretty sure. I try to give that to you, and I'm sure you've gotten from other members as well. But like, I ran into a bunch of folks that I used to be their summer camp counselor, and they're like, hey, I went back and I was a counselor because of you, or these are things that I did in college because of like the experiences that you provided us. And they were like, you remember that one day where you like let us just watch Star Wars and eat candy and everything? And they don't know that I was like, yeah, I was just kind of phoning it in that day because I was burnt out. But for them, that was like the best day of their life. And it's so surreal. So to me, like the jobs that I got to have where I impacted people directly and I formed really deep bonds with folks, those have been the ones that have meant the most to me.
So I want to switch gears and get into our fun segment, as I like to call it. We don't really have a true name for it, but we'll get there, and we'll have all the lights and the cameras, action stuff on the screen that change around, and we'll get the number tickers and all that one day. But what's your favorite movie?
The Social Network.
Favorite TV show?
Heroes.
Remember that Heroes series release party or first episode of the second series, whatever it was. That was so much fun. Hiro Nakamura, that was my guy. Pepsi or Coca-Cola?
Pepsi.
Apple or
proud partner of the Devils. Apple.
was that a job plug?
No, it wasn't. It just came to my head.
So, favorite superhero?
Superman. Although some people would say it's Iron Man, and I know, and they know who they are when they watch this. It is in fact Superman, with Iron Man being a close second.
Okay. Favorite comic book?
Probably Crisis on Infinite Earths. It's a limited series crossover that DC released from 1985 to 86, where they rebooted their continuity.
You were not born when it came out, but
I'm
you're
aware.
Such a fanatic that you know about comic books from 1985 to 86. Favorite place to vacation?
Walt Disney World. Sorry, Gio.
Favorite place to vacation that's not Walt Disney World?
Favorite place to vacation that's not Walt Disney World? Upstate New York.
Upstate New York?
Yeah, like the Catskill area.
Okay. What's up there? I've never even heard that. Keep secrets. I knew he had secrets. It's like he doesn't have secrets, but I know he has secrets. If you could go one place you've never been, where would that be?
If I could go one place I've never been, I think I'd want to visit certain parts of Africa and learn about different parts of the like Atlantic slave trade. And also, I'd love to visit the like Holocaust Museum. I think it is important to understand like that these unfortunate atrocities have occurred in human history. And it's important for us to just keep those things top of mind as we navigate life to prevent ourselves from repeating the mistakes of the past.
You can meet one person, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh, man. If I can meet one person, dead or alive, Martin Luther King.
Your mother is?
My world.
Good job, Alice. I'm proud of you. Your sister is.
Someone who I'd give everything for.
See, there's a good guy here. Sometimes. Favorite food to eat?
Cheeseburgers.
Cheeseburgers. I like cheeseburgers too. I look like it as well. If we were going to have a conversation with your club friends, those still around and those no longer in your life, what would they say about Daquan Foster?
He's a really annoying guy who's really into Star Wars way more than he should be, but he's one of our really good friends, and we love him.
If you had to pick something to change in the world, if you had a magic wand and you could wave it and all things on that item would be better, what would the thing be that you would change?
Access to healthcare.
What is your favorite guilty pleasure when having a night of Netflix and an unhealthy snack?
Like what's my favorite,
The unhealthy snack.
What's my
Guilty
favorite unhealthy
pleasure.
snack? All right, this is gonna sound weird, but it's Pop-Tarts, man. I should not eat those. I'm
You're
far
30
out.
plus.
I know. I'm aware. I'm aware.
But that's why they call it the guilty pleasure.
Exactly.
So I will not give you the opportunity to ask me any questions, but I will give you the opportunity to say a phrase or two about me so we don't make this too much about me. But I like myself too. I sometimes think I'm sliced bread. What would you say about me that maybe people don't know that has been a good thing in our relationship?
Your capacity for empathy is immeasurable. I think that, it goes without saying, I'm an adult, but I very much have always wanted to be like you in so many aspects. And my life is tremendously better because of the impact that you've had on me. And you're incredibly reliable, really resourceful, really, and just you show up. You show up for people beyond just you're an incredible executive, but you're also an incredible human. And I think that that's the two sort of go hand in hand. I think that the staff that I've seen you work with and the vision that I've seen you lay out for this organization has been phenomenal. I'll end with this. When you became the CEO of this organization, I was asked, "Oh, are you surprised that now this guy that you've known at that point for the better part of 15 years? You knew him when he first started coming and working at the club when he was straight out of college, and now he's the CEO. And did you think that this was possible? Were you surprised?" And I said, "No. If you would have asked me then, I would have thought you could have been the CEO from the first day I met you. Of course, I only thought you just needed a college degree to do it, but." Just the knowledge and the love. And I mean, just so you folks know, this man used to come to the club many hours before it would open. Daryl Bradley, God bless his soul, used to actually walk me to school in the morning. You would be at the Boys and Girls Club in the morning because Daryl and you would be at the club in the morning. You'd be there cleaning the club, and you would stay there with us till 9:00 when it was time for us to go home. And then you'd still be there because you'd be cleaning up the building and making sure it was ready for the next day. And I mean, it is that type of commitment and dedication that I think makes you so unique and so special, and why I think that you were, outside of the paper qualifications, the human qualifications that you had to lead this organization, it can't be stated well. And I'm thankful to know you and to have been a witness to all of that, and to continue to be here and on this crazy ride of life alongside you. And this is the last thing I say, I promise. On your wedding day, you called Sancho and Rouse, and you guys just kind of talked as you were getting ready to embark on this next chapter of your life. And I hope you know that I look forward to calling the two of them and you on my day into the room, and we're just going to talk and just get that really good advice as I'm getting ready to enter that next chapter.
Well, I want to thank you, and I would like to end on a fun note that I asked you for one or two phrases, and you don't listen, like you didn't listen when you were there. Thank you so much. Daquan Foster is one of our most treasured club members because he's been around, he's shown up, he's done the things in his life that he set out to do, and he continues to chart a path to accomplish the things he hopes to accomplish while also continuing to serve his community as an alumni committee member. And we are so thankful and proud of what his life has turned out to become. And we would like to say, as the Boys and Girls Club of Newark, to thank you all, those that he mentioned, like Ray Chambers, Prudential, the New Jersey Devils, Horizon Foundation, so many other organizations that support our work, is that this is the type of young man, a young person that we turn out into the world when you make your investment and when our team members make the investment in us and in the young people that we serve today. So couldn't be more happy. And for young people, I hope that you took the messages that Daquan shared to heart, particularly those of you who are struggling with your identity, who you are, who you believe yourself to be because of the world around you. There is light at the end of the tunnel. You often will need help and support from someone. So don't be afraid to ask for help and support. But all in all, no matter what, don't be afraid to be yourself, because you can only be that. You can only be you, and no one else can live your life for you. So thank you again. Thank you for being our milestone episode, our second alumni spotlight. And we will see you next time on the Great Future Sports. Smash that like button, subscribe, and we hope to see you again.
Take care, everybody.